J's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's Epic Quest.
Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. It is Doug, and with me I've got
Scarrels, and also joining alongside us is Jim from Fantasy for the Ages. So
Hey there,
welcome
everyone.
back.
Glad to be here. I can't remember last time I was with y'all. It's been some time.
Because you didn't join us for House of Chains at all, right? Memories of Ice had to have
It was
been
Memories of Ice. Yeah.
okay.
Man, has it been that long?
It has.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, welcome
I'm sorry
back.
it hasn't worked out.
Yeah.
To have you back. I know we've tried, it just scheduling hasn't worked out. So,
But that's all right. I enjoy this book much better than the last one, so it's all good.
Ooh.
oh, well, good. I'm liking it better too. There was a lot of good things in House of Chains. There was a lot of things I liked, but man, the ending just killed it for me.
Oh, it's hard, yeah. But Midnight Tides is just such a shift. A shift in tone, a shift in location, a shift in everything that really worked for me. A lot of Malazan fans don't like it as much for that exact reason. But it totally worked for me.
I feel like I hear more good than I do bad with this book.
Well, you hear nothing but good from me.
Before we get too far into this, because I always forget to do this at the beginning and we save it for the end, why don't you introduce yourself, Jim, if somebody is new and hasn't, for whatever reason, heard you on one of our episodes before where you've joined us. I guess it has been a while. It was Memories of Ice.
So I'm Jim. I'm the father of the father-son duo that does Fantasy for the Ages YouTube channel and podcast, where we talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things we enjoy. There's a lot of content on the channel that's just me because I'm the one who had the idea in the first place and have more time for it. My son is a very, very busy young man, but he joins me whenever he can. We just had an episode come out today that's the two of us actually talking about our 2026 reads that we're looking forward to. We drop things out there every couple of weeks. There'll be something with both of us, but just about every day there's something from me. And just having fun, sharing the love of all this speculative fiction, including Malazan. But if you've never checked us out, just look for Fantasy for the Ages. And anywhere you get your content, you'll find us there.
It took me a long time to catch up to your current episodes, and now I'm able to stay on top of it, but you are very consistent putting things out, so it was very hard for me to catch up, because I started from the beginning, and I listened to all your episodes. There might have been a couple that I skipped, like if it was something I wanted to read and haven't yet, that type of deal, but I've listened to probably 96% of your episodes out there, so.
Awesome. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Sorry, Justin.
It also helps that our episode lengths tend to be more like 20 minutes, 15 minutes. When Zach comes on, then they get a little longer, but we don't put out a lot of 90-minute episodes. So it gives you a chance to catch up, see?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Fair enough. Oh, Derek, I think that we should go with D-Hole and Jug as our names.
Okay. All right. I'll be D-Hole. I'll not be Doug. D-Hole it is.
Yep. And I'll be Jug.
I'm perfectly happy with that.
I don't know what else to say. So, not plural though, just one Jug.
All right. I guess I've got the patrons here. We've got Jan the Picker, Luciana Etrigan, Ryan the Topological, Damien Facing the Rock, Nate Fiddle Me This, Shield Anvil Dylan, Calvin He Who Witnessed, Livia the Malazan Potato, Aaron Motti Regular, Scott the Only, Graceless Passion, Dead Smell, Jesriant, My Own Genesis, Alex the High Mage, Tyler the Great Raven, The Joyful Union, Tony the Watch, Steve Bottle Kegs, The Mortal Sam, John I'd Kill the Mule, Talk the Middle Child, and Peter, who I guess maybe it's been a little bit since Peter joined. I don't remember if we got him in on the last episode that we recorded or not. So there you go, Peter. There's your shout out. We need a nickname from you. Once you hear this, let us know. I think we messaged you.
Mm-hmm.
But Peter lives in Germany, I believe.
Yeah.
The Gates.
You guys
The
know a little
Gates,
German?
Peter.
Yeah. So welcome, Peter, and everybody else. Thank you guys for joining along with us. I messaged with Tyler a little bit here, and he's just starting House of Chains and going to start listening to our episodes on that. So I'd be curious to hear his thoughts as he goes. So you got a ways to go to get to this one, Tyler, but there you go when you get it. So
Chapter 5 of Midnight Tides here is the epigraph. Against the flat-like thunder where the self dwells between they eyes. Beneath the blow the bone shattered, and the soul was dragged forth to write in the grip of unredeemed vengeance. The Last Night of Blood Eye. Author unknown. Compiled by Tist Andi scholars of Black Coral. And I had a thought about that. So this poem, or writing, was created by scholars sometime after the events of Memories of Ice. Because Black Coral didn't exist until the end of Memories of Ice. Correct? Because before then it was just coral.
Jim's staying quiet, so I don't know what that means.
I can't add to that. It's a theory.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Okay. Dang.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Jim, before we really kick off this chapter, I wanted to ask you, and I feel like I probably did this when you were on for Memories of Ice as well, and I know it's always a hard question, but out of the main 10, where would you rank Midnight Tides for yourself?
See, I did this just recently. Where did I put it? I think I put it kind of right where it falls. It's all 5 books that come after this rank higher for me, but it's definitely better than the 4 before it. It kind of is falling just in the perfect slot.
Okay, cool.
Interesting.
All right.
Okay.
Just wanted to get your thoughts with that. So, all right. First section here. The shadow's laughter was low and a sound that promised madness to all who heard it. Udinaas dropped the net he was working on and looked up to the sky. He was alone on the beach with the waves as his only company. Alone, except the wraith that now followed him everywhere. It was conjured, then forgotten, wandering in an eternal battle with the sun, though there were always places to hide. Udinaas closed his eyes and told the wraith to stop it. It spoke in his mind, saying, why would it ever stop? It smells his blood growing colder, and it once knew a world of ice after it was killed. Even darkness has its flaws, and that's how they stole him. But he has dreams. Udinaas spoke back, saying that was what he was always saying. He told the wraith to follow his dreams and leave him be. The wraith continued saying he has dreams, and that Udinaas understands nothing, calling him a slave, and that he, or the wraith, was not happy about serving, and he would follow Udinaas, who looked down at the rocks at the beach. There was a sliver of shadow where the voice was coming from. Again, Udinaas asked why. The wraith said Udinaas promised a worthy journey. Did he dream of gardens or electric sheep? The wraith knew he did. He could smell it. There is no escape. So with his dreams, it serves him, again the wraith, to serve. He believed he was once Tyst Andy, murdered and flung to the mud until the ice came, then torn loose after many years to serve those who murdered him, his slavers whose diligence then wavered. The wraith called him a slave again and asked if they should whisper of betrayers. Udinaas asked if he wanted to bargain. Hither, when you call me, it said to call him whither. He has dreams and wants that which Udinaas casts, his shadow. Then whither would be his. His secret eyes no one else would see or hear unless they guess or have the power. But why would they guess? He is a slave. Wither tells him to behave, only until the moment he betrays, though. Udinaas said he thought the Andi were supposed to be dour and miserable, and asked Wither to stop rhyming. Wither agreed once Udinaas gave him his shadow. Udinaas asked if wraiths could see him. He was worried about Han and Masag. Wither called him an oaf and said he would hide in Udinaas' natural casting and not to be found. He says they were bold in their day, soldiers in a war, an invasion, soaked in the cold blood of the Kachin Shamal. They followed the youngest child of Mother Dark and were witnesses. Udinaas asked, to what? Wither said, Blood Eye's betrayal of their leader, the dagger driven into their lord's back. He himself had fallen to an Edur blade. Unexpected, sudden slaughter. They stood no chance at all. Udinaas made a face as he watched the waves battle the river's current into the ocean and said the Edur claimed it was the other way around. Wither asked why he was dead, and they were alive then, if they were the ambushers. Udinaas said he didn't know, but if he intended to lurk in his shadow, he needed to learn to be quiet, unless he speaks to him. He must be silent and watchful, nothing more. Wither said first Udinaas would need to do something for him, and again called him a slave. Udinaas sighed, recalling that most of the noble Edur were at the internment ceremony for the murdered fishermen, along with half a dozen kin from the Maneda, since the Edur's identity had been confirmed. There were less than a dozen warriors behind him in the compound, and the shadow wraiths seemed to be bolder at times such as these, darting between longhouses and walls. He'd often wondered about them, and now that if Wither was to be believed, he had his answer. They were not ancestral Edur, but Andi, the bound souls of the slain. He thought that he was desperate for allies. He asked Wither what he could do. Wither said before the seas rose here, the Hassana Inlet was a lake. To the southwest, the land reached out to join the westernmost tip of the reach, a plain where his people were slaughtered. He directed Udinaas to walk the shoreline to the south. There was something of his there, and they must find it. Udinaas rose and cleaned the sand off of himself. There were 3 slaves from the Warlock King's citadel by the mouth of the river, washing clothes, and a single boat a long ways out in the water. Udinaas asked how far he would need to walk. Wither said it was close. Udinaas said if they thought he was walking too far off, they would just kill him. Again, Wither said it was close and called him a slave again. Udinaas reminded Wither of his name and that he should address him as such. Wither interrupted him, asking if he claimed the privilege of pride. Udinaas said he was well more than a slave. Wither said he acts if he is nothing more than a slave. He calls him one to remind him of that. Failing in his deception, and then all the pain they would inflict on him to find out everything. Udinaas said that was enough, and he continued walking down the shoreline and asked where he should be looking. Wither said among the rocks. They came to the place, and Wither told him to dig. Udinaas found an arrowhead, and Wither said it was hundreds of millennia old. Udinaas couldn't believe it was that old. There would be nothing left. Wither said if it was only simple iron, then he would be correct. But this one is invested. It remains because it will not surrender. Udinaas must resurrect it. He asked why, and Wither told him he had his reasons. Udinaas didn't like this plan, and told Wither he would not be the hand of his vengeance as he tucked the arrowhead away. Wither's laugh followed him as he walked on the stones of the beach.
This was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, it reminded me a little bit. I don't what chapter was it that I really liked? Was it chapter 2 or 3? The one that had just like all the horror vibes.
Yeah, I think that was the beginning. That was chapter 3.
Chapter 3. And this first line really reminds me of that. The shadow's laughter was low, and the sound that promised madness to all who heard it. Just another good line. And like I guess throughout this chapter as a whole, I didn't quite feel as much or as many like instances of horror vibes like I did in that other chapter. But this was a nice reminder to that.
Yeah.
Jim, I guess I don't know if you remember when you read, like I think Justin was saying it was chapter 3, but there was like where the thing came out of the ocean and took out the ships and stuff. Like that was such a cool chapter, and it was so well written. Like if I'm gonna read horror, I decided I want it to be like that. That's the type of stuff I want to read.
To add on to your thought, Derek, I love the personification of the shadow, right? And you kind of get kind of a really cool detail here when it's wandering in an eternal battle with the sun, though there were always places to hide, right? Like it just makes you think of like a very sunny day, no clouds in the sky, very little shadows, like a high noon type thing. But there's still shadows, less frequent, but there's still places to hide. So like it was just a very cool image.
Yeah, even in the cracks of those tiny little rocks, there'll be little shadows down there, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Jim, how was it coming back to this chapter after however long it's been? I imagine you probably reread it here in the last few days.
Right. It actually makes me want to reread the whole book again because I'm like, oh, this is so cool to slip back into this. Yeah, there's just such good stuff happening here, and this early in the book, I mean, you're still just getting foundation of things that are to come, and knowing what those things are now makes it that much more fun.
Well, good to know.
Yeah.
My next thought here, and Justin, I might disagree with you on this, but so Udinaas, he's having this conversation with Wither, and obviously Wither is in his head, but I wasn't sure if Udinaas is speaking out loud or if it's in his mind. The text isn't italicized like the rates in his head, so I'm not 100% sure. I feel like he's talking out loud, and if that is the case, then he's going to have to be careful because if somebody overhears him, they'll be like, well, who are you talking to? Or this dude's crazy, he's talking to himself. Some type of
Gotcha.
deal, something like that.
I think I misunderstood your comment. I thought you were purely speaking from Wither's perspective.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yes. But then, yes, I would agree with you. I think that because it's not italicized, that is an important detail to say that, yes, he is talking out loud. But also, Wither kind of gives some forewarning, right? Like, hey, like you need to act and pretend to be a slave. And therefore, I'm going to call you slave, blah, blah, blah.
I don't think that's too much of a spoiler, Jim, but do we have that right?
Yeah, you have that right.
Okay.
That's my understanding too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're all in agreement then, so that's good.
You were expecting a fight.
I didn't think it was going to be a big one, but I thought maybe we could have some disagreement. We haven't, I guess, I don't know. I guess we disagree on House of Chains, but
I mean, yeah, I'm definitely the cheese that stands alone. I'm assuming is what it is.
My next thought here: Wither tells Udinaas to behave up until the moment he betrays. I like Udinaas, and a lot of it just stems from his name because I think it's a cool name. Like I wonder what kind of betrayal we're speculating at here, and I suppose it's probably to kill an Edur since Wither is an Andy that was murdered by the Edur, unless there's something else that will be revealed later. But that's probably where I would lean for now.
I think it might have partially to do with the Wyval blood. It doesn't seem like dragons and the Edur are very friendly with each other either.
So he's going to betray a dragon?
No, he's going to betray the Edur.
Oh, well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
This murdered fisherman, maybe I'm not remembering who that was, but like I was thinking, why would nobles be at the ceremony for just like a simple fisherman? Did we know who this was? I guess I don't remember.
He was the one that was sheathed in coins. That's where we kind of got that they were like Udinaas was preparing the body all in coins, and the widows would place the coins on the body.
I remember that. I guess I didn't remember that he was a fisherman. It seems kind of extravagant for a fisherman, I guess.
The key is this is a tribe, and so he was one of the tribe, and you honor your dead. Doesn't matter whether you're the king or you're peasant number 2 down the row, you're part of the tribe. So there is a ceremony to honor one of them, and everybody's involved. That's
maybe I'm just aligning more with the Letheri, who probably would have just dumped him off in the river, I guess.
Oh,
and
probably.
moved on
They're
about their day.
schmucks. Yeah.
Right, yeah. But also, from what I recollect, he was a Veneto warrior, whereas the tribe that is honoring him is Hiroth. So, and I know that, like, Hanan Mosag is trying to create unity, and I think that's more or less why they would do it. But I think that if this was, like, pre-Hanan Mosag's reign, they probably wouldn't have gone to the lengths to. So I feel like they mentioned in one of the earlier chapters where, like, they were warring amongst each other until Hanan Mosag came in and blah, blah, blah.
Mossad definitely has a different agenda. And
Yes.
this is one way of practicing it.
Correct.
Udinaas says he is much more than a slave, and I'm assuming that he's referring to the Wyval blood. Or is it something else? Is he some sort of spy or undercover agent? Or maybe both? I'm not sure. I don't know what you guys think. I guess, Jim, maybe you probably know, but Justin, I don't know if you have any thoughts.
You could be right with the whole, Wyval or Weevil thing, Wyval. But I think that this is just, hey, I'm so much more than just this person who does work for you. Like, I have a personality, I have thoughts, I have opinions. I am a person, right? Like, I'm so much more than just what is looked upon me. Like,
Exactly. I'm not just defined by being a slave.
right.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So I think that's what he was more or less insinuating. But, it could lead into what you were thinking, and, maybe there's something that he knows is within inside of him, and, like, maybe that makes him feel powerful, right? Like,
last thing I'll say about this section, I didn't jot it down, but I was just kind of thinking about it. But the last sentence here, Wither's laugh followed him down as he walked on the stones of the beach. And, like, in my head, I'm just imagining this maniacal laughter that's just kind of taunting Udinaas. And again, maybe that's just kind of another one of those, like, subtle horror vibes. Just makes it eerie, and do you question your reality a little bit? You're talking to a voice in your head.
mm-hmm. Right. But also, what was really cool is that, like, he would hide within Udinaas's shadow, right? So you could pretty much, he's just following him. Like, your shadow follows you, right? Like, it kind of goes back to those old school, like, cartoon tropes where they would interact with their shadows. That's kind of like what my headcanon goes to.
Oh, yeah, like they would, in the cartoons where they, like, fight their shadow or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not fighting here, but just, that
right.
type of, imagery.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah. That's all I had on the opening section here. Did either of you have anything else you wanted to add?
I'll just toss in, every time anyone gets together and talks about Malazan, we always have the differences in pronunciations. And yeah, a couple of years are cracking me up this time.
Oh, yeah? I imagine Udinaas, how did you pronounce his name?
Udinaas. Anytime I see the double vowel, I pronounce them both. And not everybody does it. Just like the Tistiandii got the two eyes. Instead of Andy, Andii. It doesn't matter, but I'm never going to be able to say Udinaas the way you do. I just can't. I see how you get it, but I can't.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'd be curious what they say in the audiobooks then.
And I've never listened to the audiobooks. Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, does Erickson provide a pronunciation to audiobook narrators?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'd have to ask him. I'm not sure.
Maybe we could put that on our list of questions to ask.
It'd be a simple one to ask, and I mean, knowing him, we'd probably get a lengthy, cool answer out of it. So,
for sure, yeah, I look forward to that. So,
on the bright side, I have no issue with how you're saying "wither." That works for me.
Well, okay. That's good.
Thank you for that vote of confidence, Jim.
Right.
Oh God, that's good stuff. All right. Well, we ready to move on to another popcorn-filled section?
Do it.
All right. Section 2 here. There was smoke hanging low in the sky. Benatas out loud said that it was a funeral. Seren Paddock nodded and recalled the Eater practice of burial. Seren drew her knife and removed mud from her boots. This side of the mountain intermittently rained, and her clothes were soaked. 3 times that morning, the wagons had skidded off the trail, one time crushing an Narek to death, beneath the solid wheels. Boots had been foul. Baruch confined himself to the wagons for the first 3 days. Seren thought that at least the descent was done, and before them was a wide trail that led to Hanan Mosag's village. Benatas watched the wagons rock clear of the slope. Seren could sense his impatience. She recognized that someone had died in his village and suggested that he should take off, because the Narek needed to rest and the path forward was pretty obvious. Benatas looked at her suspiciously. Hall said that it was true and told Benatas that they wouldn't constrain him any longer. Benatas, before taking leave, said that he would inform Hanan of their visit. They both watched the eater set off down the trail. Hall asked her if she saw it. She said that she only saw conflicting desires and obligations. Hall asked then, what does one choose to do? Seren shrugged and said that this is the way of us all. Hall said that it didn't need to be that way. She was surprised and met his gaze. She asked how exactly she was supposed to respond to that, as they were like soldiers hiding behind the barricades they built. And Hall would do what he believes he must. Hall asked, well, what about you? What course awaited her? She thought to herself that it was always the same course, but then told him that the Eater were not his to use, but they were not bound to follow. He turned away and said that he had no expectations and that they should resume their journey. She glanced over at the Narek. They sat by the steaming wagons, and their expressions were dour, strangely indifferent to their dead kin. She wondered how much could be stripped from a people before they started doing it themselves. Dissolution was steep, and it took a skid before it was a headlong run. The Lethery believed in cold-hearted truths. Momentum was an avalanche, and no one was privileged the choice to step aside. The division in life and death was measured in incremental positions between progress. No one could afford compassion. She thought to herself that they did live in a harmful time. It began to rain again. Far to the south, beyond the mountains they had just crossed, the downfall of the Eudor was being planned. Seren suspected that Hall's life had been given up as they could not afford the risk that Hall presented. He had basically promised treason. The irony was that they both wanted war. However, the difference lied with whoever won. She began to wonder if Hall had any idea how to pull this off and stay alive. She also pondered if she should save his ass or not. A shout from Baruch sprung the Narek into motion, and they began down the trail. She covered herself in her cloak and sensed Hall walking up beside her. She didn't look over. Hall asked what temple she had been schooled at. She snorted and shook her head, admitting that it was Thurlas, the shrouded sisters of the empty throne. Hall said he remembers the temple. He then inquires about what kind of child she was. Seren explained that there were ledgers at the temple recording the names of notable students. She explained that he would find her name in many of them, adding that she held the title for the most punishments in a year. She said that she was more familiar with an unlit cell than her own room. Seren added that she was even accused of seducing a visiting priest, and while she was indeed responsible, she was promised by the priest that he would protect her. He was then excommunicated. Later, she had heard that he had killed himself. Hull came around to stand in front of her, and she was forced to look at him. She smiled and asked if she had shocked him. Hull said that the ice has broken beneath him. Seren felt a flash of anger until she realized he was mocking himself. They continue on conversing until Seren gets to the point where she asks why they were speaking of this. Hull responded that these were questions he forgot to mention back then. She said nothing. Her brow simply rose. He understood that facial expression and said that she might be right about this thing, but she was wrong when it came to the Edur. Seren questioned him on this because the way she saw it, he was the only one driven by his own needs, and the Eater as they are the sword within his hands. She asked where the compassion was in that. Hull reveals that she has it wrong, as he doesn't want the Eater to be his sword. He wants to be the sword. Seren felt a chill deep in her bones. She inquired as to what that meant exactly. Hull shook his head and said that he couldn't trust her, and like everyone else, she would have to wait. All he asks is for her to politely stand out of his way. Politely not to stand in his way. Seren hung Hull's admission of trust as it cut her deep. But then she reminded herself that trust ran both ways. The last wagon stopped and Baruch berated them about not getting on with the show. Seren told him enough. She wiped the rain from her coat, ignoring Hull, moved past him onto the path. The forest trail was flanked by blackwood trees, planted to assert Edur possession of this land. The midnight bark had been carved into nightmarish images, an arcane script by which shadow wraiths clung to every groove. Those wraiths rose into view to watch Seren and the traveling party. There seemed to be more than usual, and for that her steps slowed. Hull came up beside her and whispered that they had raised an army. She picked up on the dark satisfaction that existed in his tone. Seren asked if they truly were the ancestors of the Edur. Hull responded with confidence that what else could they be? She instructed Hull to urge the Narek on as though listen. She stopped her instructions as she saw a lone figure on the trail, skin the color white and tall as an Edur. Wraiths swarmed to the figure's feet as in worship. Baruch exited his wagon and came to Seren's side. He whispered, "Barrow and root," and that the tiles did not lie. Seren took a step forward and Hull told her not to. She pulled herself free and snapped at the figure if he would have them standing there all day. Despite the bravery in her words, she was scared shitless. She halfway believed in ghosts and apparitions, but from those tales and stories she had heard as a kid, she imagined apparitions to look a certain way. This figure defied that headcanon, as the physical attributes were so detailed. She thought to herself that it was if he clambered free of one of the barrows in this forest. But he wasn't Edur. The apparition spoke, telling a tale of a dragon that once dragged itself down this trail, back when there was no forest. He asked if they felt the scattering of memory that pushed the roots away. He turned to look down the path behind him. They heard the apparition say that the Edur were kin of his betrayer, but yet an innocent. He faced Seren once more and said that she wasn't so innocent. Seren was shocked at hearing this and said nothing. Behind her, Hull asked what this ghost was accusing her of. The ghost responds that there were thousands of misdeeds. Seren, Hull, humankind, the gods are nothing. The ghost continues on until Hull demands to know what the apparition wanted. The wraiths had slipped away, and a new tide began to swarm at the ghost's feet. Mice, pouring up the trail. They were ankle deep and first to reach Seren. She wondered what imperative got their tiny attention. There was something horrible about them. The ghost said that the land had shattered, nothing was left standing, corpses on the ground and the tiny creatures that fed on them. Hood's own legion. He shook himself and answered Hull's question and said that he wanted nothing with them. He tells the group that their path hasn't been walked before. Seren said that they were not going to believe that. She was struggling to kick away the mice around her feet. She said that if the apparition would or could not, then he left them no choice. The ghost asked if they would deliver countless deaths in the name of convenience. Seren said that she saw no end to his creatures. The ghost said that they were not his, and they simply belonged to his time, back to the age of their supremacy on this land. A multitude of tyrants to rule over the ash and dust they left in their wake. The mice see in the ghost spirit a promise. Hull interjected and asked if they were to see the same. The apparition started to fade, and as he was doing so, he replied to Hull. He said that maybe the spirit they were seeing was not his, but rather Hull's. Then the ghost was gone. The mice began leaving the path and into the forest on the other side of the trail. Seren swung to Baruch and asked what had meant about the tiles not lying. Something about barrow and root, as those are the tiles of the Azaf. She asked if he had witnessed a casting before they began this journey. He could not look at her, and his face was pale. He tells her that the holds are awakening, all of them. Hull asked who the ghost was. Baruch abruptly said that it didn't matter, as the mud stirs and things crawl free. The seventh closure draws near, but he fears that it will be nothing like they were taught it would be, the birth of an empire. But who shall rule it? The prophecy is vague, but the trail is clear to let us proceed. Hull asked how they were supposed to make any sense of that. Seren shrugged and said that the prophecies are like the tiles themselves, and we see in them what we will. The terror in her throat after saying that left her feeling very weary. She removed her helm, and the rain fell like ice upon her head. She thought to herself that she couldn't save him. She couldn't save any of them. Hull was speaking to the Narek, and she tied her helm to her pack. The journey resumed. She thought to herself that in 2 days it would be done. 30 paces ahead, unbeknownst to the travelers, an owl soared over the path ahead. There was blood on its beak and talons. Sudden rewards were unquestioned. The hunter only knew hunting and didn't care for the fear of its prey, caring not for the white crow that flew in its wake.
Nice job, man. That was a big one there.
Yes, it was. And lucky for you two, I have tons of comments. All right.
I even snuck one in here for you too.
Ooh, I like this. All right. So, Edor practice a burial, right? That's fucking weird. Hear like a ringtone going on upstairs, but nobody's here. It's just me.
It's a ghost. It's a shadow wraith.
In the house.
Oh.
It knows what you did last summer.
Oh, I didn't do fucking shit last summer.
I
I
remember
worked.
last summer.
I guess this is a cool thing for me, just the details of the burial here. You know, they essentially brick fire the corpse and, constructed pyre where the heat got so hot that it would essentially bake the coin into the corpse. And the part I find interesting is this part where the shadow wraiths lingered, dancing between the flames. Like, being what we know about Wither, Udinaas' shadow wraith, do you think they linger to mock or make fun of the dead Edor? I don't get the feeling of respect.
I didn't ever think about that, Justin, but
Yeah,
I would
can't
agree
say
with
that
you.
I thought about it either.
Right? Because, I mean, why else would you linger? I mean,
Yeah,
and
in that
obviously
sense,
more comes out through this chapter, but that was just kind of one thing that, if what Wither is saying is true, which I think it is, then, I mean, what else would they be doing outside of mocking the Edor, the dead Edor, right? It's funny how just this one word, right, and like the description of the Edor practice of burial makes me go back to House of Chains. Do you remember Bithadol? You remember
Bithadol?
how, yeah, Bithadol. You remember how he would always say, remember the dark?
yeah.
Well, if shadow wraiths are enslaved to the Edor, what do you think Bithadol is trying to do when he says, remember the dark?
I don't know. I don't think he's trying to summon these wraiths, I guess, but maybe he is.
I mean, I don't think he's trying to summon them. I think that he's trying to remind them where they came from, like fuel that anger, right? It's just funny how a book later we kind of get maybe an explanation. I mean, that may or may not be true, but I just thought it was interesting that like that more or less train of thought, like remember the dark, like don't give in to being a slave, kind of very similar to what Udinaas is experiencing. Like, hey, look, I'm much more than just a slave. For the Andi, it's remember the dark. Don't acquiesce to the Edor. Remember the dark. All right. Hull asks Seren asked her if she saw it. This was kind of after Benatas kind of left the group to go, find out who died back in his village type thing. And to me, it seems that Hull is seeing something different. And I wonder if he's pointing out the fact that Benatas seemed to listen more when a man he respected essentially said the same thing. But is it because he's a man, or is it because there's trust between him and Hull, as Seren's observations back at the beginning of chapter 4 suggested? Their conversation a bit after this seems to suggest that Hull may think he can convince the Edor to do his bidding, and Seren seems to pick up on that. At the beginning of chapter 4, Seren Paddock has this like inner monologue about her observations of men, going back to, they look at each individual rock, and then she kind of compares that to what she has experienced as a woman, more tight weave, looking at not just the rocks, but them as a whole. So I kind of wonder if like Benatas kind of looks at her suspiciously, like, you sure I can go? But then Hull just kind of like echoes Seren's sentiment. And then he's like, yeah, okay. Are we seeing like a little bit of like misogyny with the Edur, or is that maybe just a one-off? I don't know. I just couldn't help it. Just for whatever reason, when I was summarizing, when I was rereading it, this just keeps getting called back. Is her inner monologue from the beginning of chapter 4.
I do not have an answer for him. Sorry, man.
Fair enough. Well,
Jim?
I guess we'll just read on and find out about that one.
Yeah, read on and find out.
Not helpful.
Hey,
That's okay.
Man, I got to start picking out stuff that we could talk about. All right, fair enough. Well, I guess we'll continue on with that. So kind of banking off that last comment, Seren says that she only saw conflicting desires and obligation. And then Hall asked her, well, then what does one choose to do? And Seren just kind of like shrugs and said that this is the way of all of us. And this is kind of like another supporting theory to Hall's intent that she chose compassion by choosing to let Benatas go to his village to soothe his obligation to them, the traveling party, instead of coercion, like Hall is saying afterwards. That it doesn't need to be a choice. Compassion, that is. I really like these things of compassion because I feel like even in today's day and age, right? Like compassion is just so easily discarded, and judgments and stereotypes even just kind of take prevalence. So compassion is easy too.
It's I guess my comment on your section here was a couple down, but just reading the section and when I reread it, or when I was summarizing and I read your section, and I read this line that said no one could afford compassion, and it didn't jump out at me when I read it the first time, but summarizing it did. And it wasn't even my section, but like it doesn't cost you anything to be compassionate. I guess you can kind of mirror that with like sympathy to some degree, just being a decent person. Like it's the easiest thing in the world to afford, just to even if you don't fully mean it, just to try to align yourself with somebody's feelings a little bit, just to, I guess, if somebody's having a bad day, maybe you validate that a little bit, you understand where they're coming from. Tomorrow's a new day.
Right. Costs you nothing, as you said.
Right. And it could change somebody's course of their day. If somebody feels like they're heard, then they're not holding on to those feelings as much.
Right. So, and then, Seren is kind of looking at the Narek, right? And she wondered how much could be stripped from a people before they started doing it themselves. And this really reminds me of kind of the way that the Tistandi were described to us in Gardens of the Moon. And we know shadow wraiths are in servitude to the Edur. Maybe not all, but maybe most. And I wonder what the specific event that was the skid before their headlong run, as they say, right? So what was the hesitation, or what was the event that caused them to downhill spiral on themselves? It's very similar to, like, even in Memories of Ice, right? Like, it wasn't the Andi who cleaned up the dead. It was other Malazans, right? Like, they seem to have this indifference to their dead kin, and I see that mirrored with the Narek here. So,
never mind.
Nothing? Got something?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nope. Yep. No, I had it. Yeah, I'm good.
And I realize, Jim, that that's probably very not inclusive to someone who has read this book and the series. I've said it over and over again throughout this podcast, but like this whole light, dark, shadow stuff is just super intriguing to me. So like I like hyper fixate on it, which is probably not a good thing, but I'm paying attention because I don't want to miss anything that's like super important,
Oh, much of what you're reading about is colored by things that happened in the past that you don't know all the answers about. You're getting little pieces of it here. So you're astute to be paying attention to these things.
Yes.
I don't know, Jim, if you listened to our interview with Erickson after we finished House of Chains.
I did not.
Okay, well,
jealousy had something to do with it. God dang it, you had to talk to Erickson. Yeah.
One thing that was pretty cool, Justin posed a question to him that where Erickson had not thought of things in that way before. And he didn't really give Justin an answer, but he did tell him to pay attention and keep on that train of thought because he would be curious as to what he found going forward.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense to me.
Damn it. Okay, fair enough.
I just thought it was such a cool moment, man. Like, I was excited for you for that. That was awesome.
The other thing I'll tell you when you think about these sorts of things is that once you finish Malazan Book of the Fallen, you're going to want to keep reading because you don't get all the answers, even by the end.
Nope.
That's why there's more Malazan books being written, because there's more to discover. And I'm having a blast going through those other books, which I have not finished yet. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, no, I feel like the things that I'm particularly interested in probably won't happen until Forge of Darkness and Path of Light. We'll see what happens. See when we get there. Because it's interesting how we've got Forge of Darkness, Path of Light, and then I believe the next book is A Walk in Shadow, which those are each representative of the Teist races. So, all right, onwards. Dissolution was steep, and it took a skid before it was a headlong run, kind of going back to my comment about the Narek. But then she ties in the Lethery, believed in cold-hearted truths. Momentum was an avalanche that no one who was privileged had the choice to step aside. And I really like the comparison between dissolution and momentum. And it's very much the same cascading effect, but for two different groups of people. So I thought that was a very elegant way of kind of tying both faults.
Nothing to add for me on that.
All right. And then, yeah, you just said no one could afford compassion. And again, this thought where Seren has about the risk that Hull presented to the Lethery, and he had basically promised treason, right? And I found this a little off-putting, but remembering that Seren is the only one who really knows Hull's plans, the way it's worded makes it seem or related to the risk Hull presents to the Lethery, but that's because those in Lethery don't know what, like, Seren Paddock knows. It's just this weird way of, like, we know as readers, but the Lethery don't. And kind of going back, piggybacking off of that, she begins to wonder, like, how Hull is even going to pull it off and stay alive. And then, do I save his ass or not? And this is going back to Chapter 4's conversation between Tahol and Bryce Benedict, where they were talking about honoring their parents. Hull is trying to pull off what Tahol did, but lacks the knowledge. But he's with Seren Paddock, who is incredibly smart. So it's just kind of funny how, like, it ties those two moments together where, like, Tahol is not worried about Hull because, yeah, he may not have the knowledge, but we've got Seren. But also, she's seeming to kind of like, oh, well, what do I do? Like, do I save his ass? Can I save his ass? She doesn't know all of the details of his plan. And when she does inquire, Hull is like, yeah, I don't trust you. So, and then she's deeply stabbed by that because they clearly have a past. So, next thought, the Shrouded Sisters of the Empty Throne. And I'm kind of wondering, like, is this a hint? Shrouded Sisters? A shroud blocks light, but unable to block all of it. Otherwise, one couldn't see. Makes it align with shadow in my mind. We see over and over again fragments of Corald Emerlon. So therefore, the throne is empty because we see different fragments being fought over, etc., etc. So I'm wondering if the Shrouded Sisters of the Empty Throne more or less is just another fragment of Corald Emerlon. Maybe. No. Way too hyper-fixated?
Maybe.
Okay. All right then.
Sorry, man.
I thought the shroud thing was genius, right? Like, it's meant to block light, but it obviously can't block all of it, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see. So therefore, shadow. All right.
Yeah, you're thinking deeper than crosses my mind, but that doesn't mean you're wrong.
All right, here's another long comment. All said that the ice has broken beneath him, and Seren kind of feels a flash of anger and then soothes herself when she realized that he was mocking himself. And I kind of wonder if that's foreshadowing of some kind on top of being a mockery. But also, to dive deeper, what does it mean to have the ice broken beneath you? Like losing your footing, or maybe a stable situation that has declined in some way? Like the mystery of his actions and the consequences of his actions, to be seen as rooting for the Edur to destroy and dominate instead. I think that's a pretty big fall when considering his Lethery ties, right?
I think of falling through the ice, and I think of shock. Probably going into cold water, you're gonna have a shock to your system in probably some way.
Like a rude awakening, right?
Yes, that's a good way to put it.
I'm just kind of wondering if that is foreshadowing. Like, will he be successful in being the sword of the Edur? You know, I mean, clearly he wants vengeance against the Lethery for what they did to him, which makes sense. I mean, I would be pretty pissed about that too, right? But yeah, I'm just curious as to where else is going to go. And I feel like I'm picking up very subtle hints. So they do, I didn't summarize kind of what came after that, but I think it's important to highlight that particular situation or that conversation while not necessarily needed for the summary. What they talk about is important as they converse about the effects of our external wars, i.e., life and how it affects us on the inside. And being compassionate isn't a skill one is born with. And I think that this hits home, at least for me, because it's so easy to look at someone else and judge them for what they do or don't have. And I think that like this conversation was, I mean, very, very uplifting as far as like, you know what, we all have our own internal battles. And sometimes we just can't let the external take precedence over that.
I think that's well said, ma'am. Like again,
Yes.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Man, all right, cool. Note to self: find things to converse about. All right.
You're just being so skillfully deep today, and we've got nothing.
Well, I'm not today. I was just, I mean, like when I was summarizing December 13th, this particular, yeah, so 10 days ago. I don't even know how I remember half these comments, to be honest.
You're good at pulling them out, man, and just retaining that info.
I don't know how. All right. And then, you know, kind of go back to this. Paul tells her to politely not stand in his way. And it kind of goes along like he seems to have made up his mind, you know, for for the vengeance of how his people used him. Or does it maybe go deeper, like the mistreatment of the Edur by his people? Maybe both. But either way, I hope the latter is a driving reason. But I wonder how he'll be the sword. And maybe, and Derek, maybe you can answer that since you have a good sense of fighting and military decorum. Like, how would Paul achieve his goal of being the sword of the Edur and not using the Edur as his sword?
Just, I guess I would think of like he's gonna do some sort of like lone wolf attack.
Or he knows things they can use for their advantage, give them an edge. Sword edge. There you go. See?
There you go.
There you go.
Like
Okay.
when he said that he wanted to be the sword, I was thinking like, how is he going to make a strike on his own, like type of deal, and I wasn't really sure, but that's kind of where my mind went. But yeah, like you said, Jim, giving him an edge, that's a good way to put it too.
Nice. I like that. I'm going to conscript that into my thoughts.
Nice.
So I'll take
There
it.
you go.
Another like cool imagery detail for me in this section, the carved into nightmarish images and arcane script by which shadow wraiths clung to every groove. And I thought this was a really cool detail. You know, carvings in wood create depth, and depth creates shadow, and wraiths find those as they can't live elsewhere, it seems. I just thought that was very clever, against their will, granted, but still clever. I imagine, like, in school when you create those stamps and then like you push them into the clay, there's now what was a flat surface, shadows these wraiths could hide in,
Little ones.
little ones, right? And then of course, Seren asked if they were truly ancestors of the Edur, and Hall responds with confidence that what else could it be? And it's just, I giggled, I chuckled, little do they both know they're essentially both, right? Edur having to be born of light and dark mixing together, so that makes dark their ancestors in a way, but also they've enslaved the souls of their ancestors as shadow wraiths. It's interesting to me that there's like multiple levels there. At least for me, I could obviously be wrong, but next thought, again, continuing on with the wraiths, they swarmed to the figure's feet as in worship, and the apparition of the betrayer. And I just thought that this was really cool.
What was his name again?
Silchus Ruin.
But he's the one who got stabbed,
Right.
right?
But to the Edur, he's been indoctrinated to be the betrayer by Father Shadow. But Father Shadow is the actual betrayer.
Well, who's the other one? What's the other one's name? I cannot remember. Right?
Blood Eye.
Scavendari.
Scavendari Blood Eye. Yep.
There we go. Thanks. I cannot align it in my head that Silchus Ruin is a betrayer. He was the betrayed, I feel like. It is just
right.
really hard for me to recollect that, or reconcile that in my mind.
Right. And you're right. But the Edur think that he is the betrayer.
Well, I don't like that.
Yes. I mean, if you go back to your first section, right, where Wither is explaining, like, why is it that I'm dead and not the Edur, right? So
right.
It plays along with that. I thought it was cool. I was not expecting, Silchus Ruin to just show up in the middle of this path and ta-da, like, I'm having a hard time understanding what exactly the point of that was. I'm sure will be explained in good time, but it felt almost random a little bit, like calling them out for their lack of innocence, I felt was very deep, but also could have been maybe used at a different time. I don't know. It's like, poof, there it is, right? I'm just struggling to figure out what the point of it was, but I'm sure, as Erickson does so splendidly, there's a reason for everything. So, and then of course, Baruch, as the apparition is making itself known, the Barrow and Root, kind of going back to, they are players within the hold of the Azath. And in our last chapter, chapter 4, Shirk and Kettle spoke about the Azath and how they were dying, and something about the Azath having to release a person. And then, of course, we got the 5 Tobokai breaking free. So I almost kind of wonder if this is the person, if Silchus Ruin, the fake betrayer, right, was the one that the Azath was forced to release. It's kind of like my headcanon. I'm sure that I'm probably wrong, but that's just what I immediately think of.
I feel like it would make sense for him to be released or to get out. Like, I feel like we're going to have to see him at some point in the book, so it doesn't make sense to me that he would just, we saw him in the prologue and now he's in Azath forever and we never see him again.
Right. I would 100% agree. So I think that it's interesting, and I just wanted to make note of it in the podcast.
That's what we do.
I also really enjoyed Seren's description of what she recollects as a child about how she imagined a ghost or apparition looking. She almost kind of, like, in the book, I didn't do the summary justice, but in the book, she almost makes it seem like they're supposed to be like cartoony looking, just very like devoid of details or features, right? And looking upon Silchus in the trail, completely contradictory to everything that she had imagined in her mind. And I just thought that was really cool, like just like a next level detail there. But, the apparition says, or tells a tale of a dragon that once dragged itself down this trail back when there was no forest. And I thought that the word dragged was an interesting word choice. And does this imply that this dragon was injured? Is this dragon Scambandari Blood Eye or Father Shadow, right? Like, did this dragon who was injured, bleeding, drag himself to form this trail, right? And I'm going to guess that they ended up in that, what was it? The stone bowl or something, like that's,
Yeah,
he
I know what
ended
you're
up,
talking-
Mhm.
Yeah.
he ended up there and was found by the Edor widows or wives or whatever.
We did see Silchas. I thought he was pretty bloody in the prologue because weren't his swords broken and stuff, and like he was a pretty hot mess expressed there.
Yeah, for sure. And, as you said, Jim, earlier, pieces of the puzzle, right? Like little tidbits of information. So kind of connecting something that we read as what I would consider the end of his journey to dying. I mean, I made mention of the betrayer thing. I feel like it's very easy to be confused by this particular word because, I mean, to the Edur, it's true, but yet not true at the same time. It did take me a few chapters to finally like wrap my head around it. But anyway, this part with the Hood's Own Legion, the mice are pouring up the trail around the travelers. And I'm like, is it the Ivers that eat the flesh of the dead? Are they Hood aspected too? Type thing?
I definitely wondered if they were divers or not. I mean, or was there just some random gigantic mass of rats running around?
I mean, it does say in there that they were, Hood's Own Legion, right? And that they, something about supremacy, like they had ruled back in, Silchas Ruins time. It made me think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, honestly. I don't know if
Really?
you guys, yeah, how the mice were, I'm sure maybe
I've
this
not
is
read
a
it. I don't know
spoiler.
anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, watch the movie, Derek, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But it just makes me think of that. And I mean, it's always possible, right? I mean, these things would feed, or I mean, these mice would feed on many, many of different things. They're not they're indiscriminate as to what they're going to eat upon, right?
I mean, if you're hungry, you're hungry. So
Right.
it's the Tenniscoury mice.
Yeah. There you go. I chuckled at this part where Silchas is like, "Oh, so you would deliver countless deaths in the name of convenience? Like you just gonna stomp all these guys to death so that you can continue down the trail?" I just thought it was really funny. Oh, here we go. Yeah, there we go. Back to the age of their supremacy on this land. So the mice were superior and reigned? I find that interesting. But again, is this a Diver thing? Or Diver soul taken thing has got to do with dragons? I get the feeling that these cultures are all a result of breeding with each other. There seems to be this common theme where, there's like half breeds. Like we know that Icarium is a half blood, Jaghut, and what I am assuming Tobakai, potentially. Something along those lines. But also like are Divers, are they, combination of mating with Kachain Chamal and dragons? I don't know. I mean, see these reoccurring themes where two cultures breed with each other. Guess any thoughts on that one? No. Okay. All right.
Just for Justin. You're going for tonight.
Yeah. All right. This part where Baruch said that it didn't really matter because mud stirs and things crawl free. And I'm assuming this means that they meant to say that more than one Azath is dying, losing its hold on their occupants. That's kind of what maybe makes me think that, but again, could very well be wrong. I just think it's interesting,
I think it's a bad deal if things in an Azath are going to get out.
Yes. Which again, I think I mentioned this in either chapter 3 or chapter 4, but I mean, we know that in Memories of Ice, Kachain Chamal are undead. is it possible that they are from Azaths or, I'm assuming that whatever, Gothos froze this battle scene after it was done, I'm assuming that thaws and melts, and the Kachanchamal are undead and they're roam free, conscripted by the Panions here, right? Like, I also had thoughts about, this glacial melting, right? Like, what if that is what floods the Nascent in the beginning of House of Chains, Like, there's just so many things that I just can't stop thinking about. Like, so many things that, like, could be tied together, but they could not be tied together. And, like, God, I want to know.
I'm not sure how you sleep anymore, because,
I don't know either.
there's
I
a
really
lot of
don't.
that you could be going around and around with, and you don't have enough answers yet.
No, not at all. So I will just read on and find out and wait patiently, I guess.
I mean, we get to start a new sub book here, so that's exciting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Lots of asinine theories, I guess you could say. All right, last one, and then I'll stop holding you hostage here. This thought about Seren not being able to save him or save any of them, it goes against Tahol's theory about her protecting Hull and makes me a little worried. Kind of plants some doubt in my own mind.
Guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite the overview, Justin. Sorry I didn't really have much to add there for you, but you were pretty in depth and you did a great job.
Yep.
Thank you. Maybe I'll rephrase my comments to invite more conversation.
My brain works differently than yours, so
It's all good.
It's kind of the fun part. We see different things. So
Very true.
all right, section 3. A random gust of wind had brought the remnants of the pyre's smoke into the village. It had burned for a full day and night. Troll emerged from his father's longhouse the following morning to find the mist drifting across the compound, bitter with the taint. He regretted this new world he had found, as revelations could not be undone. He had shared secrets, and the truth was he would rather have done without them. He wondered how many men Hanan Masag had drawn into his plans, and to what extent the women had organized against him. At least among the brothers there had been no words on the subject, not since the conversation in the pit. The bashed in Dragonskull was the only witness to what most everyone else would call treason. Prep for the upcoming journey was underway. They would not have slaves with them. Hanan Masag had sent wraiths ahead to the villages between them and the ice fields, so supplies would await them there. No need for slaves, at least until the very end of the journey. A wagon made its way over the bridge with freshly forged weapons, iron-tipped spears in bundles, copper sheathing protecting fully half their length, among other weapons as well. The forges sounded the din of war once again. Troll saw Rulad and Fear approach the wagon with more slaves in tow, Fear directing how the weapons would be stored. Rulad asked Troll if he had need of any more spears. Troll said no. He saw weapons of the Arape and the Marud, along with the Beneda and the Denrath. Rulad cut him off, saying yes, there were weapons from every tribe. This is how it was at every forge in every village. He called it a sharing of skills. Troll asked Fear what he thought about all of this. Would he be training the Hiroth with new weapons? He said he had thought on how to defend against them, but it was the Warlock King's intention to make a true army like the Letheri. They would have special units, and that he was the weapons master for the new Warlock King, and now at his command, all the tribes. Troll asked if he was to lead the army. Fear said if it came to war, then yes. Rulad said the Sengar's name was honored. Fear said Benatas returned this morning. He would take the day to rest. Then they would leave. Troll nodded. Rulad said that a Letheri trader caravan is coming and that Benatas met with them on the trail. Seren Pedek is the Equidor and Hall Bedek is with them. Troll wondered what Hall wanted. He was the one who betrayed the Narek, the Tarthanol, and the Fered. He knew not all Letheri were the same. If the rumors were true, in the palace of the king himself, the merchant was set to deliver words from whoever had bought him and Seren. Given her profession, would neither give her opinion or interfere. He had not been present in the village during her other visits, so he could not judge more than that. However, Hull, who was once sentinel, was said to be immune to corruption, such as a man who had been once betrayed could be. Troll silently watched the slaves drag weapon bundles off the cart to the armory. He thought even his brothers seemed different now, as if shadows were stretched tight between them. Darkness in the blood between brothers. None of this was good for the journey that was about to begin. Troll thought to himself that he was always the warrior and that he doesn't see too much, but what he does see are the wrong things. So the fault is his. He needs to be mindful of that. The example he gave himself was roulade and man. Wrong things and wrong thoughts, but they are the ones that seem to be tireless. Roulade broke his thought and said Benatas told him Baruch carries Letheri iron and that it would be useful. Dapple knows. The Letheri are fools. Fear cut him off and said they weren't fools, they were just indifferent. They didn't see an issue with selling them iron one moment, then going to war the next. Troll said, nor did they have an issue killing the tusked seals. They are a nation of 10,000 grasping hands, and no one can tell which ones are true, or which ones belong to those in power. Fear told him King Diskanar was not like Hanan Masad. He doesn't rule his people with absolute. He trailed off. Fear swung away and said Man was the guest for dinner tonight, and that their mother may ask that he participate in the meal prep. Roulade met Troll's eyes for a moment and said, so they shall, right before he turned his attention back to the slaves. Troll thought to himself, absolute power. No, we have undone that, haven't we? And indeed, perhaps it never existed at all. The women, after all. ... A couple thoughts here. I guess this was a few days ago, but this line where it says bitter with the taint. I guess I must have been thinking about the fire from the night before, and the taint to me, I guess I thought must have been like ash floating through the air. Don't think I really had anything deeper on that, but that's just what was in my mind at the time. But that's all I got on that. Yeah, probably burning bodies probably don't smell good. And then so we find out that they're sending supplies ahead with the wraiths. And to me, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If you can do that, then why don't you just send the wraiths to go get this ice spear that they're going to go on this journey for? If you don't want to do that because you don't trust them, then how do you even trust them to deliver these supplies and these food stores to begin with?
Maybe shadow wraiths are not allowed or can't enter wherever this ice spear is.
Maybe, I guess.
Some type of threshold that they can't cross, but also like supplies versus this all-powerful spear. I guess get disobedient with the supplies, not necessarily the end of the world, but you allow them to go get this all-powerful spear. Do you think that they would be able to unenslave themselves or fight back?
I guess that's a fair point.
That's more or less where my mind is going to, but
yeah, I guess that makes sense. I don't have any argument against that.
I'm just gonna smile and nod.
That's also not helpful, Jim.
The chuckle. I love it.
I thought this was interesting. Like they're looking at this spread of all these different weapons, spears and swords and things to knock people off horses, and I just kind of parsed it down to whatever I wrote. But they said this is what's happening at every forge in every village, and I thought, you know what? I don't know if this is Roulad's idea or not, but it seems like a good idea to. Why don't you just have everybody make everything instead of specializing in it? Because if you lose a village that specializes in these weapons, well, you still got 10 other villages that can make, all the same stuff.
Well, and if your goal is unification, kind of makes sense to share the resources, the wealth, and even the knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
For an ulterior motive, though. Dun, dun, dun.
Let's see. Troll. He wondered what Hull wanted. He was the one who betrayed the Narek, the Tarthanol, and the Fared. Either he doesn't know or he doesn't believe the story of Hull being used to gain intel against all those other villages. I don't know if that's a very coherent thought, but
I mean, I think that it is a coherent thought, and you're probably right. Troll himself may not know, but the Narek, Hull got to know these tribes on a very intimate level, almost to the point where the way that he was as a person was enough to thwart what his people did to him. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, he had gotten close enough to build that rapport with all of these tribes, these Edur tribes. And I'm assuming that, word probably spread around about Hull between the tribes, especially now that, like, maybe they've been unified. I don't know. I guess that's my thought.
sure. And then we've got Troll, thinking to himself again here. Just, I guess, some self-doubt, that type of thing. And the example he thinks to himself about is Rulad and Man. But, I think he's going to be right about them, that there's something going on there.
It's funny, though, because, like, I almost feel like what he's doing here is he's ignoring his intuition, which, we as people sometimes do. It was just, I don't know, it was very real life aspected.
The saying is often trust your gut, and he's trying to tell himself doubt my gut.
Right.
And
I'm just seeing things.
This isn't the first time he's felt like this. I feel like we're kind of getting bashed in the head with a shovel about this. Like, we should not trust this. And I don't know how it's going to turn out, I guess, but I definitely think that there's something there, and Troll sees it, but he's, like you said, Jim, he's convincing himself that he doesn't. I'll be curious about that.
Well, I think that, and related is just, his thought about his brothers seeming different right now, as if shadows were stretched tight between them. Darkness in the blood between brothers, right? I mean, darkness was a key word there, because at this moment in time, darkness and shadow are not friends. Darkness kind of insinuates that there's maybe something afoot here. And I think that it's one of those things where, what did they just get done doing? They just went to this, like, stone bowl thing, and they found the skull of Scambandari Blood Eye. Well, who may be interested in that information other than the widows? Hanan Mosag, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nice add-on there.
Thanks.
That's all I've got, unless you guys have anything else you want to talk about there. I think this section you've got might have been my favorite. One of these upcoming ones. I think it's this one I really liked a lot.
Yes, I liked this one. Was probably my favorite too. Do I understand it? Probably not.
You're doing the best you can. You got a ton of notes, so
I do.
Again.
Jim, you look like you need a drink.
Yeah, I'm gonna go fill. Feel free to read, and I'll be back before you're done reading.
Okay, well, here's the second part where you grab your popcorn, y'all.
Yeah, you kind of got stuck with the long ones here.
Yeah, that's okay. This one was not nearly as long as the other one, so it's all good.
You do a good job with them.
Thank you, sir. You do as well.
Ah, thank you.
All right. Section 4. The other slaves were busy in the longhouse, but since he had to work this night, Udinaas was permitted a short period of rest. He saw Uruth standing near the central hearth, but he was able to slip past as just another slave in the gloom. Featherwitch's words hung with him. If the Edur figured out the truth of the Wyval blood in his veins, they would surely kill him. He knew he had to hide, but he didn't know how. He settled into his mat and closed his eyes. This night he would work with Featherwitch. She had visited him that one time in his dream, as that was his only real opportunity to speak with her. She had seen in him the Wyval blood, or so she had claimed. He wondered if that even was Featherwitch. Was it nothing more than a conjuration from his own mind? Whether she liked it or not, he would invite her. As the sounds of the slaves droned on from a distance, he started to drift to sleep. Oh, he had a fleeting thought of where the shadow wraith had gone. He was without form and insignificant binding of senses, in ice, a blue, murky world with streaks of green and the smell of cold. Distant groaning sounds, solid rivers sliding against each other. Sunlight delivered heat into the depths, where it built until a thundering snap shook the world. Udinaas flowed through the frozen landscape, which to all eyes in the world beyond was motionless, timeless. Nothing was revealed until that final explosive moment when things broke. There were shapes in the ice, stuck in awkward poses. Udinaas found himself traveling through scenes of slaughter, Ticed Edur and darker-skinned kin, enormous reptilian beasts with blades for hands. He came to a place where the reptilian bodies formed a solid mass. Flowing among them, he suddenly recoiled. A vertical stream of meltwater rose through the ice before him, threading up and out from the pile of corpses. The water was pink, mud-streaked as it rose upward, as if driven by some deep, subterranean heart. And that water was poison. Udinaas found himself fleeing through ice, clashing into rock, hard corpses, then into fissures that were devoid of bodies. Down solid channels he went, going faster and faster, until the gloom swallowed him. Massive creatures with ivory tusks, and herds of them were motionless, suspended above a black earth. Wolves, frozen in mid-leap, were surrounding the herd. This was yet another scene of slaughter, the world flung on its side. He thought to himself that the world betrays. He asks Errant how this can be. Udinaas had known many who thought certainty was a god, the only god. He had seen how this belief made the world simple. He had always believed that the world was unquestionable, but seeing these beasts frozen in mid-leap or grazing on plants, this was beyond comprehension. He thought to himself that it must have been sorcery. Even then, the power seemed unimaginable, for it was the belief that the world and all it lived possessed a natural resistance to magic. Otherwise, mages and gods would have destroyed that balance a long time ago. Thus, the land and the beasts that dwelt on it would resist. He thought to himself that they had failed. Then, in the depths, he came upon a shape, a stone tower. He saw a doorway and found himself approaching it through solid ice. He went through the opening, something shattered, and he dropped to his knees. The stone was cold enough to tear the skin from his palms and knees. He got up and hit something with his shoulder, and it teetered from the impact. The cold air was brutal, blinding him and seizing his lungs. Through freezing tears, he saw a tall figure, skin bleached and limbs that were all too angular with many joints. Udinaas then saw the twisted corpses of those around the tall figure, a tusked man, woman, and 2 children. Their poses suggested that the tall figure had been the cause of their death. Udinaas was shivering uncontrollably and called out to Wither, the shadow wraith. He heard nothing in reply. His heart beat fast, and he had the realization that this didn't feel like a dream. This felt real. He felt no connection to his body in the Edur house. He realized that he was here and he was freezing to death. He thought to himself that he would die here, within the depths of ice, in a world of secrets where time has ceased. He turned and studied the doorway. Only then did he notice the footprints on the floor's flagstones. Leading out, human and barefoot, was a child's. There was no ice visible beyond the doorway. Feeling fleeting from his limbs, he backtracked the footprints to behind the standing figure. After a numbed moment, he saw that the back of the skull had been bashed in. The break looked recent. The tiny cracks had indicated that it was the child's, but the figure was as tall as the Edur, so Udinaas suspected that the child would have had to have climbed. His thoughts were slowing as he began to feel sleepy, but felt pressure from contemplating this mystery. He wondered if they would find him frozen on his mat. Would they see that as an omen? He told himself to follow the tiny tracks. What else was he to do? He went through the doorway and when he made it to the other side, sounds of battle and clanging of weapons reached his ears. He could see nothing, though. Heat rolled over him from the left along with inhuman shrieks. Contact with the ground stopped, and the sounds were faint below. Winds howled, and Udinaas realized that he was flying. Others of his kind sailed the currents. He thought to himself that these were loquai weevil, spawn of Starvalad Demalain, the children that none would claim as their own. They are the flies spreading from a rotting feast from one realm to another. Dishthal, Wyvala, Enkaral, Troll. We are a plague of demons and 1,000 pantheons. Oh well, there were other things than love to thrive. A tide of air pushed him and his kin aside, and something loomed into his view. He thought it was Eliant, soul taken, but with so much draconic blood. Tiam's own. It was huge. The dragon the Weevil chose to follow loomed to their side. Udinaas knew his name. Silchus Ruin, Taistandi, who fed in the wake of his brother fed on Tiam's blood, and drank deep. Deeper than Animander Rake by far. He would have accepted the burden of godhood had he been given the chance. Udinaas knew what he was about to witness. The betrayal of Shadow, the murder of honor and the breaking of vows. The Shadow Wraith had not lied. The legacy of the deed remained in the eater enslavement of Andi spirits. The weapons of those days possessed terrifying power, but had been shattered by a Kachange Maw matron's death cry. Lights flickered, physical wrenching, and he found himself on the pallet once more. The skin had been torn from his palms and his knees, and his clothes were wet from the melted frost. A voice whispered from the shadows and said that it had sought to follow but couldn't, but said that Udinaas had traveled far. He rolled over and said that he had witnessed the Shadow Wraith's place of slaughter and asked what the Wraith wanted from him. He explains that he wants escape from the past, but he will be led onto a path. The Wyval blood will protect him. Udinaas asked, what about the Edor? Wither said to let him worry about them, and told Udinaas to ready himself, as he has tasks to accomplish. It was a sleep that left him feeling exhausted, but despite that, he got to his feet.
Yeah, there's quite a bit there. I'm sure you'll talk about it, but part of this feels like we're seeing things get stuck in an Azath house to me. I don't know if you felt that way.
It did not feel that way.
We're just talking about like the animals getting stuck in whatever, or maybe it was the Jag Hut Warren or whatever. I don't know.
I feel like I guess that'll come up. I think I do talk about something like that.
I'll
of
shut
course,
up. I'll wait.
Knowing me, right? So my first thought was, these distant groaning sounds, the solid rivers sliding against each other, sunlight delivered heat into the depths, and then where it built until a thundering snap shook the world. And I wonder if this is like a call out to the sun melting the ice, and the thundering snap was like the releasing of water. Reminds me of like an ice age, but like melting. And again, I wonder if this has something to do with the ascent we saw in the House of Chains. Yeah, I get Ice Age type vibes, like I immediately go down, or Ice Age, right? Like those movies, the meltdown specifically, where things are breaking, things are getting let free. I mean, I guess not technically wrong, but I don't think that like this is within the yard of an Azath, but I could be wrong. Like that specific detail, I'm not sure about.
I think about like a glacier moving with that particular section or that line.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Things are moving, things are colliding, right? Like the hard part, I think, is that Udinaas has two state of beings in this section. He comes in and is ice. He was without form and insignificant binding of senses in ice. So I think that like he is experiencing the breaking apart. And then, as you could see, Udinaas flowed through this frozen landscape, right? So like he himself, as chunk of ice, breaks free and now is moving freely throughout this landscape. And from the ice's perspective, is seeing kind of the landscape around, because as it says, eyes in the world beyond was motionless, timeless. My immediate thought makes me think Jag Hut. And it's interesting that it's just hitting me at the time of summary, because I just thought that Jag Hut Icery was just ice, right? Like, which it is, right? And now I'm thinking that it's also associated with time. Like, remembering Gardens of the Moon and Deadhouse Gates, where we learned more about Icarium and his machines of time he built. So, like, being that he's part Jaghut, probably has this inherent ability or time aspected, right? It's just really interesting. Like, it took 5 books for me to recognize that, like, it's not just ice, it's the ceasing of time as well. Because the Jaghut are a hold, right? They're not a Warren. They're not in the deck of dragons. They're a hold.
Sure.
The ice hold, right?
I'll take your word for it. I don't have a counter argument on that.
There's
So.
different meanings for hold.
Can you elaborate on what was said? No. Okay. That's
really fair. Yeah, you're reading into Jaghut a little too much.
Okay. Never mind. Cool. Good to know. I will tone it down. Simmer down now, as Stickley would say.
I don't think it's a bad thing, but
first time
your brain's just going, man. Like you're just going.
Yeah, that is fair. This part where, he finds himself traveling through scenes of slaughter, the Taistidur, Taistandi, Kachain Chamal, and, he's obviously flowing through the aftermath of what we saw in the prologue of this book, frozen in time by Gothos himself, Icarium's father, right?
Yep. You are reading that correctly.
Yeah.
That's probably where I was feeling like, just like with the freezing and stuff, made me think of like an Azath and things getting like sucked to the side and stuff like that. So
yeah,
but I see where you're coming from, and I changed my train of thought, and I agree.
Okay. This part where, he's talking about this pile of Kachain Chamal corpses, and there's like a stream of water rising up from it, and he says, as if driven by some deep subterranean heart. This was something similar said about the mice that Seren and Hull met with the apparition on the trail. And I kind of wonder, is there a connection to what we're seeing here with this pink mud-streaked water and the mice? Is it Diver aspected, perhaps, or Hood? But part of me is just like the crippled god. I feel like, because it says, and that water was poisoned. We know from House of Chains that the crippled god conscripted the Edur, right? The prologue of House of Chains exists for a reason, but knowing Erickson, the prologue to House of Chains, I feel like, is the ending of Midnight Tides or something like that.
We just gotta get there. Gotta read the story to get there.
And then again, before he, eventually found himself approaching it or going through the doorway, he approached it through solid ice. So I don't know. This is maybe where my theory might be weird, because I thought this whole time I was under the impression that he was encased in ice or was ice. But it seems like he's got an aberrational quality to his state of being. I guess he's just kind of like following chain of events as like indistinguished senses type thing. And then this is where I say that he kind of transitions. And then, he comes across this frozen thing, and I'm assuming this is the one that has its skull bashed in.
I guess I don't remember. Are you talking about the thing that I would also agree is a fork roll sail?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, what the hell is this thing doing here? Why did it kill a Jaghut and its kids?
Well, and that's what I'm curious about too. And, because we always saw that it was like Talan versus Jaghut. So why are the fork rule of sail siding with the Talani mass? I understand that they are more or less explained as peacekeepers, but this seems contradictory to that. Are they just like Talani mass pulling the wool over their eyes and like making the Jaghut to be bigger demons than they actually are? I mean, I don't know.
I don't know either. I don't know why. Like, why did this thing get brought up now? I mean, we got a little bit, with Calm in the last book, and then we just have another one thrown in here. Like, made no sense to me.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I know that, like, again, from what I understand, they're like peacekeepers, right? So, like, I think that they're trying to just resolve problems and therefore get themselves involved. I mean, we don't know much about them. This is kind of like the last race we
I
don't know
don't
much of.
have the absolute answer, I want to tell you, having read the whole thing, on why this is here, but a theory that you're kind of on track with is you're just getting another piece into their purpose, and that it's not always as cut and dry as one might think.
Fair. Okay. And then this part where, Udinaas is realizing that, like, oh, well, now all of a sudden this doesn't feel like a dream. This feels very real. But also, his palms and his knees are freezer burnt, or, whatever you want to call that. Frostbit. When he first stumbled in across the scene and the shattering sound dropped him to his knees, a word was used, and that word was corporeal, which meant, I didn't know what it meant, relating to a person's body specifically as opposed to their spirit. So
Yeah,
I think,
corporeal, becoming physical.
right. Yes. So I think this is why he's got two states of being in this particular section, which I didn't pick up until I was starting to summarize it. The dream became very real. I like this part, where he's flying with the dragons, or, the Wivels, the Loquai rivals. And we get a mention of the Enkaral, which we had an encounter with one in House of Chains with Kalam, right? And the soul of the demon being transported into the Enkaral from Beardies or Birdies or whatever that scene was that I fucked up so eloquently. Yeah. Yeah.
That's all right.
So
I had fun with that.
yeah, I know you did. I know you had fun with that. But yeah, it was just kind of cool because, like, now we know that they are children of Starbalad Demolane. They're just rivals on a different realm. Unless I'm misinterpreting that.
I don't know. Maybe not. Read to find out.
Tiams. Have we heard this name before?
Isn't he like the Big Daddy Dragon?
Was that in Gardens of the Moon? Did Animander Rake summon Tiam to fight the Jaghut Tyrant? I don't remember all that years ago.
Don't remember there, but I do know one thing was said a moment ago that misspeaks. Not the big daddy of the dragons, it'd be the big mama.
Okay, but sure.
Okay, Big Mama. Okay, which I kind of figured based on who fed in the wake of his brother fed on Tiam's blood and drank deeper than Animander Rake by far. So drank Tiam's blood made me think of, like, breastfeeding motherhood for some reason. So I would assume that Tiam is female.
Oh, wow. I was thinking like vampire.
Oh,
Not the same thing at all. So
No.
but it's
right.
kind of. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I think yours is probably the more correct way.
I just think it's interesting that they make this, or I mean, he makes this point to call out Animander Rake. It almost like Silchus Ruin should have been in Animander Rake's spot. Like, he drank deeper of the blood, where Animander Rake, I'm feeling like, just based on this one sentence alone, is maybe, like, obviously didn't drink as deep, right? So, like, maybe he had reservations, or he didn't want to, or he's feeling some type of resentment towards Tiam, or I don't know, like.
Yeah. Hold on to that thought.
Ooh. I have one hit every 1,000 hits or swings or so. So
Hey, you get on base still.
sometimes we see what happens. But yeah, those were all of my thoughts for that really cool section.
Anything to add, Jim?
No, I speckled in there a few times. That's all I got now.
All right. My last section, this one was a little longer, but nothing too crazy, I don't think. With her two slaves, Man walked across the threshold, then paused a couple steps into the main hall. She was thin and her skin a little darker than most others. Troll could tell by the look in her eyes she was aware of her own beauty and that she didn't seem against using her beauty to achieve what she wanted and potentially the freedom to chase her desires. There were many hungers or kinds of pleasure which didn't relate to any virtue, only depravity. However, Troll was hit with a wave of self-doubt as his mother stood before man to voice the house's welcome. Maybe he was once again looking through shadows he had cast himself. Troll looked over to Fear and could see uncertainty written across his face as well, but it could have been from anything else. Maybe the journey they would start tomorrow? While behind them, Rula drank in man as if just her presence satiated his cravings, all while man held Uruth in her gaze. Troll thought she absorbed the attention and fed upon it, and thought maybe he was mad and wondered if these thoughts came from the darkest places of his soul. The formal greeting was done. Uruth moved aside, and man went towards the blackwood table where the first course of food was already laid out. Once everyone was seated, Tomad welcomed man and said it grieved him that this would be the last night for an unknown amount of time, that all of his sons would be present. They are going on a journey for the Warlock King, and he hoped they would return safely. Man said she didn't think the ice fields posed any threat to the Edur, but she could see worry in his eyes. Tomad said it was only an old man's worries. Rulad said the Arapae rarely headed out to the ice fields because they feared hauntings and more, since ice can blind and cold can steal life like an unseen wound, and there were other beasts as well. Fear broke in and said his brother seeks glory in the unknown, so that man would look up at all of them in awe and wonder. Man replied that she was left with only dread and now would worry about their fates. Rulad said they would be up for any challenge that came before them. Thrall thought to himself, barring the babbling of an unblooded fool. Wine goblets were refilled, and Uruth spoke, saying that when one didn't know what they were walking into, caution was usually the best course of action. She looked to Benatus and said he was the only one who had traveled beyond the ice fields, and asked what dangers they posed. Benatus said old sorcery, however, it seemed inclined to sleep, and there are a tribe of hunters that live on the ice, but he has only seen tracks. The Arapae say they hunt at night. Thrall asked what they hunted, and Benatus shrugged. Rulad said there would be 6 of them, and that Hanan Mosag had done well by choosing the warrior sons of Tomad Sengar. The last statement seemed to stay suspended in the air, as if there were many meanings to it. Such was the poison of suspicion. The women had their own beliefs, and probably looked on the 6 of them wondering why Mosag had chosen them. And Fear would keep his thoughts to himself, knowing what he knew, as the Sengar all knew. Thrall felt uncertainty and began wondering for himself. Fear was the weapons master of all the tribes and had to reshape the entire Edur military structure. It seemed he was now the war master. It felt foolish to risk losing Fear, and among the united tribes it was thought that Benatus was one of the most formidable sorcerers. Together, Fear and Benatus had played a big role in the campaigns, while Theratus Boone had been unequaled in raiding from the sea. He had thought to himself that the only expendable members of the expedition were himself, Rulad, and Midik. So was it a matter of trust? And what precisely was this gift they were to recover? Man said there had been some untoward events as of late, as she looked at Uruth. She continued saying spirits had walked the night of the vigil, intruders on their holy site, and the wraiths had fled them. Tomad said that this was the first he was hearing of this. Uruth said all the same, it was still known. Hanan Mosag and his Krishnan had stirred deep shadows. The tide of change was rising, and she was fearful that soon it would sweep them away. Tomad said it was them who were rising on the tide. It was one thing to question defeat, but now his wife questioned victory. Uruth said she spoke of the great meeting to come, and didn't their sons tell the story of the summoning from the depths that stole the souls of the Letheri seal hunters? When those ships sailed into Trait, how did he think they would be received by the Letheri? They had begun the dance of war. Tomad said if this was the case, then there would be little reason to treat with them. Troll cut in and said the only reason to meet with them would be to take their measure. Fear said that was taken long ago. The Letheri would seek to do the same to them as they did to the Nerek, the Tarthanol, and most among them see no issue with what they had done in their past. And those that do are unable to do anything about it, so they are doomed to repeat the horrors and get the same result. Even if blood runs around them like a river, they would obsess over the details. There was no challenging the beliefs of these types of people. They would never hear it. Troll whispered that there would then be war. Fear told him there's always war. Faith, words, and swords. History is full of their clashes. Rulad chimed in with a sneaky smile and said also the breaking of bones. Tomad wasn't impressed and said he sounded like a blind elder with a sack full of wraiths, and he would like to drag him across the table and choke the gloating look off his face. Troll thought to himself that his father had delivered a wound deeper than he had any idea. He looked at Man and was surprised to see the look of delight on her face. Rulad told his father that he was not so young, and his father was not old enough to let these words pass. Tomad cut him off, smashing the table with his fist, and told him to speak like a man. Tell them all this awful knowledge that has coiled his every strut for the past week. Did he seek to part tender thighs with his womanish ways? Did he think he was the first young warrior to walk in step with women? Sympathy was a poor step to lust. Rulad cut him off, asking what bitch he wanted him to bed. Who was he promised to? Tomad had leashed him in the village, and then would mock him while he strains. He looked at the others, stopping at Troll, and said, when the war starts, Hanan, Masag will need a sacrifice. A throat would be opened for the blood to pour down the bow of the lead ship. Rulad said he would be chosen, wouldn't he? Troll told Rulad he had heard no such news. Rulad said he would. He was to bed the three daughters, Sheltatha Lor, Sakol and Kadu, and Menandor. A plate fell from the hands of a slave, spilling the shellfish it contained. The slave tried to recover and contain the accident, but Uruth grabbed his hands. The skin had been torn from them and was raw, red and cracked. She asked Udinaas what this was about. Not knowing what to say, Udinaas said he fell. She asked if he was out of his mind to let his wounds weep onto their food. Another slave came in, calling to their mistress and saying, when he had come in, he didn't have these wounds. Another cried out that he was the one who fought the rival, while another slave shouted that Udinaas was possessed. Uruth told everyone to be quiet and put a hand on Udinaas' forehead and pushed him hard. Sorcery swirled around him, and he went limp and dropped to her feet. She said there was nothing within him. Man told Featherwitch to take care of Uruth's slave. She and another Letheri came and drug him away. Man said she saw no insult in Udinaas' actions. His wounds were raw, but he had cloth over them. Uruth said all the same he should have told her, and for the lack of judgment he must be punished. Man said Uruth had just raped his mind. Was that not sufficient? There was a silence for a few moments before Uruth relented, saying since Man was the guest, she would abide by her wishes. Rulad had slowly sat while all this took place, and Tomad told him he had not heard anything on the blood sacrifice returning to announce war, and that Hassan Masag is not careless with the lives of his warriors. And he had no idea how Rulad had come to such a conclusion. The journey before them would give him an opportunity to become a blooded warrior and stand with pride among his brothers. This he prayed for. Rulad only nodded. Neither Featherwitch or Udinaas returned, but the rest of the slaves were able to serve the meal, and for all of this, Troll could still not understand Man. I
Nice
like
job,
this
sir.
section quite a bit. Thank you. I like this one quite a bit too, but I didn't really have too many thoughts on it. It seemed pretty straightforward with what was going on.
A lot more relationship and action focused as opposed to deep stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what did I have here for thoughts?
Makes for easier reading, though. Yeah. This is chapter you don't have to work so hard at.
You know, Tomad, he's thankful that he's got all of his sons present at this point in time and doesn't know when it's going to happen again. Going to go out on a limb here and say that this is probably the last time that he's got all of them together. And maybe Tomad dies. I don't know. It feels like kind of a Last Supper in a sense where this is the last time all of them are together.
Justin, would you like to make a wager with Derek on that?
Ooh.
Oh boy, we already have a pie bet on this book.
What? I don't remember this.
Yeah, dude. I think the ice spear is the Midnight Tides. Remember?
Yeah, I don't remember making a pie bet on that, but
Well, when you edit the episode, you will recollect. Yes,
Ooh.
we will have the deliverer of Midnight Tides, and I think whoever that person is, whatever they're delivering, I think that ice spear is the Midnight Tides.
Yeah, I think Midnight Tides is a person. So I think that's where we're differentiating.
Interesting.
Just the way it's worded, it says the deliverer of Midnight Tide. I mean, I guess you could be right. I don't know. We'll see. But
I mean, to answer your question, Jim, no, I don't think that is the last that we'll see of
No?
them. No, because I have a
Like-
feeling. Go ahead.
Tomad, and all of his sons. You think they'll be together one more time?
Oppositionally, yes.
You think they're all together, like in the prologue of House of Chains?
Yep.
I guess I could see that, maybe. But they've kind of cast him out. He doesn't exist any longer.
He has been shorn, yes.
So he's not their brother anymore. He
Right.
never existed. Technicality, greatest word ever.
Maybe. Kind of ties into the comment that I had in your section here, where they're talking about Hanan Masag and his Krishnan had stirred deep shadows. And then Uru said, the tide of change was rising, and she was fearful that soon it would sweep them all away. What do we remember from the prologue from House of Chains, right? Like it was a flooded something, right?
Realm.
Yeah. So is it possible that by sorcerous intent, Letheri was flooded and moved to another realm, right? But this also ties into, we meet Onrak, they're looking for, 7 rocks in the faces or 7 faces in the rock or whatever. And they come across these statues that are housing the Hounds of Darkness, right? So I would assume that these statues exist on Letheri somewhere or in this current area, maybe, if that is to be true, obviously. But so that specific line, I feel like is foreshadowing to the prologue of House of Chains. And then, of course, everything that I said after that is just a byproduct of that potential theory.
Gotcha.
So is it the E-Doer who bound the Hounds of Shadow or the Hounds of Darkness to stone? I mean, if they're going to do it to the Andi, why wouldn't they do it to beasts in the Andi's favor? Or, the Daragoth, right?
I don't know.
Did they do it to the Andi?
Did the E-Doer do it to the Andi? I mean, they betrayed the Andi, maybe.
Yes. But
that word, but oh, Justin.
Yeah, I can't say more.
Shit. Okay. At least I got half right.
I'll just say there's a difference between being the ones to cause it and being the ones to benefit from it. They're definitely benefiting from it.
Yes, you're correct. Sorry. Yes. Father Shadow.
I guess the other thing I would highlight here is I kind of liked how Rulad stood up to his dad here and kind of fired back. I don't really know how I feel about Rulad as a character. Again, I like his name, but is it like I don't know what he's about.
Well, Rulad sucks. I'm sorry. Just gotta throw that out there. If you kind of like him, good on you, but he sucks.
Yeah,
arrogant young pup who wants to be more than he's earned so far. That's my opinion.
I agree. I do not get good vibes from Rulad. I don't get good vibes from him.
He's got all these older brothers, and they all get too much acclaim. Look at me. That's Rulad. It's like, dude, you haven't earned your chops yet. In time, Show some patience, but no, he wants it. He wants it now.
I just like how he, he stands up for himself. I don't know that he's necessarily right to do it. Maybe he should just kind of be in his place, but just maybe it's some arrogance that I appreciate.
I want you to remember you saying this during this episode. I really want you to remember that a few chapters from now.
Oh man, this is gonna be awful.
Yeah.
Well,
This
damn
is
it.
the best moment of the whole episode right now.
Oh boy, I wonder. Man, foot met mouth there. It sounds like, huh?
Mhm.
Anyways, Justin, you can edit all that out, and I'm done.
Nope, not going to.
You can't edit that gold out, trust me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's Lothari worthy right there.
Something tells me that's not going to age well.
No.
Well, that's
No.
one of the smartest things you just said.
Well, I'm excited to find out because I imagine I'm going to just do a 180 on him. And I'm really going to hate him.
I'm excited for you to find out. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, this will be the inverse Karza for you.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah. Well, we ready to take her home?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. Last section here. He felt a stinging slap against his face, and when he opened his eyes, he saw Featherwitch. She called him a damn fool. Blinking the slap away, Udinaas looked around to see they were in his sleeping niche. Beyond the hanging cloth, he heard faint conversation and sounds of eating. He smiled. Featherwitch started to say that Uruth. Udinaas cut in and said that Uruth found nothing when she quested. She asked if it was true. He said that it must be. Featherwitch speculated the Wyvil must have hid somehow. It hid itself from Uruth. Udinaas asked if she was so certain of that. She sat back suddenly and said that it didn't matter. He asked her if she was having bad dreams. She started and then looked away. She then said that he was a debtor's son, and he is nothing to her. Udinaas said that she was everything to him. She tells him to not be an idiot, as she would be better off marrying a hold rat. She says that she needs time to think. He sat up and said to her that there is no need, and that he trusts her, and so he will explain. He explains that Uruth looked deep, but the Wyvil was gone. But it would have been different if Uruth had sought out his shadow. She blinked suddenly, as if understanding, and said that this cannot be, as he is Lethari, and the Wraiths only serve the Edur. Udinaas explained that the Wraiths serve because they are forced to, and they are just as much slaves to the Edur as they are. He explains to Featherwitch that he has found an ally. She asked at what end, though. He smiled again, darker this time, and said that he understood. The repaying of debts in full. Woo!
Woo.
All right. Just a few for you here. The prospect of the Wyvil hiding itself from Uruth. I don't necessarily think this is true, because Uruth is a smart cookie, and I think that similar to Troll's, intuition, I think Uruth and particularly the women are sensing this too, and I feel like maybe Udinaas, like her detecting the Weevil but not saying anything or pretending like it is hidden. Maybe she sees that as some type of way of foiling whatever her intuition is saying. I also understand that it could very well be the case that is explained right here, but I just think
Time will
Uruth
tell.
is a smart cookie. Yes.
So you've got a little bit of a shadow of doubt, Justin?
Ooh, yes, I do. I for sure do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't know which way I lean, I guess. I didn't think on that too hard, so. Or
Fair.
at all.
That's all good. Devils are in the details sometimes. Second thought here is, Udinaas said that she was everything to him. I couldn't help but say, like, sucks, but
Mhm.
she clearly doesn't seem to have any interest in him. Or maybe she's just playing hard to get. I don't know.
He's trying to punch above his weight, and it's not working.
Yeah. And then the last thought is, Udinaas understanding, that the repaying of debts in full and getting back at the Eater, or more specifically, Father Shadow, the real betrayer, is kind of where I'm getting with that. And maybe Uruth is speculating. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, she obviously maybe knows the truth, because I'm not going to go into it because I don't really have the articulation to explain. But yeah, along those lines.
Sounds good.
There's a nice little section to wrap up the chapter, though.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. I think I summarized that in like 5 minutes last night, so it was nice.
Versus, the multiple hours sometimes we spend on other ones.
Yeah.
Well, that wraps up the first sub-book. I don't even remember what it was called. I don't even have my book on me. It's upstairs in my bedroom.
Something Frozen.
Frozen Blood or something?
Frozen Blood, yes.
And the next one is Prowse the Day or something.
Yeah. Prowse of the Day.
From your recollection, Jim, what do we have to look forward to here? I guess I'm going to double down now. I'm doubling down now. Rulad's going to be my favorite character in the entire series.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
I'm just going to have to bite that bullet now.
So, how does crow taste? Do you really enjoy the taste of crow? This is where I'm going here now. You're going to be eating some. Okay.
You can hunt them in Minnesota here. So.
You certainly get to look forward to an adventure in the north as these brothers get to go on a quest.
Ooh.
And that is going to change some things.
Would you say it's epic?
It is indeed epic.
Cool.
And fantastic.
I'm looking forward to that.
And everything else in the book changes because of it. So this is big what's coming. Yeah.
I can't even fathom what to expect. I don't like I'm fully prepared to pretty much have my mind blown here.
I mean, if I had to make any guess, I think that Rulad goes for glory, go big or go home, and ends up betraying his brothers to be the one that brings home the prize to Hanan Mosag.
How can you not love a guy for that?
The things that he would do to achieve that, I think, are a little despicable, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Indeed, you will.
Well, Jim, maybe crow tastes like goose. I don't know. Might not be that bad.
It tastes like chicken. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure one way or another you're going to enjoy it.
You're right. I gotta embrace it. I set myself up for it. I just gotta go for it now.
It's okay to equivocate. You're good.
Rulad Sengar, best character in the whole series.
He can't even say that with a straight face.
Well, man, it's been it's been a couple weeks since we've wrapped up a Malazan episode. It feels weird to
how do we
do it
this
again
now? Yeah.
But I will say, man, it felt good to do this. It was just a shit day today, so I was looking forward to doing this all day. I don't know that I'll get to read the next chapter tonight, but I'll probably do it tomorrow, if anything. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else either you have to add?
Not at this time, no. I'm satisfied.
Today was my last day at work before a little Christmas break. So I get a few days off here now, and I'm definitely going to do some reading. But not this stuff. I'm on to other things. But,
nice.
Jim, have you... What? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just I got to work Friday, but the same thing next week. 3-day work weeks the next couple weeks, but...
Well, my job primarily supports schools, and they're all out on Christmas break right now. So technically, the days between Christmas and New Year's, I'm on call. If something happens and someone needs me, I'll be available. But no one ever needs me, so it's a slow time. I get a little bit of a break.
I'm in the same boat. What is it that you do?
I work with Lutheran schools, so
Okay.
I'm a district exec in our system. That doesn't mean I'm in charge. I'm in a support role, and I try to influence the schools across a 4-state range that I cover.
Like IT support or
No, mostly leadership support.
okay.
So I'm the ones that stays in touch with the principals and heads of schools, and I do a lot of training, a lot of coaching, a lot of helping them figure out what to do and what not to do.
Sure. Fair enough. Okay. That's really cool. Yeah, I work for a private school, Minneapolis here. So
Okay.
yeah. I am not needed during the Christmas breaks either.
Yeah. In fact, if I am needed during Christmas break, it's always for a really bad reason. So I'm hoping not to hear from anybody.
Sure. I would imagine 2020 was probably a Christmas break where you maybe had to do some pivoting.
That was an interesting time. Yes. Yeah.
So,
But I was probably needed more than ever during that time period.
yes.
Because everybody's like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, here's some ideas. And got to know all the state officials in 4 different states during that time. And navigated all those COVID rules. That was nuts.
Yeah. I can only imagine. Woofed up. So
No.
cool. Well, thank you for your time, Jim.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, 2.5 hours flew by here. It never feels that long when we do this. So
No, this was fun. And this was a good chapter.
yeah,
was a good
I'm glad it
chapter.
worked out to have you on. It's clearly been far too long, and glad it worked out here. So I'm sure we'll be talking soon here. I'm 2/3, maybe a little more through the fellowship, and then I got to
Nice.
read Mushroom Blues after that. So
I am very interested in your thoughts on that last book. Yeah.
yeah, that should be
Matt
interesting.
and I
since
have very different perspectives on it. So
yeah.
not that it's not horrible, not at all. Just very quirky.
Sure.
Jim, have you read The Ruin of Kings?
I have not.
I just started it. I'm like maybe 75 pages in. And it's pretty interesting so far.
Sucking you in, is it?
It's sucking me in for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
It
Nice.
it reminds me a little bit of Erickson's Complexity. So
Okay.
maybe a little less philosophical. Definitely some good how do I say it? Good story driven writing.
Okay. Well, I've heard nothing bad about it. So enjoy.
All right.
Well, to be fair, was this the first you've heard of it?
Oh, no. I have heard of it before.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Just checking.
That would be a really slick way to say that. I've heard nothing bad about it when I've heard nothing of it before because I didn't even know it
Justin
existed.
just told you about
I
it.
can say that totally true. Yeah.
I wouldn't lie, it was a thought, but I kept it at bay.
Oh, jeez. Fits into my optimistic persona very nicely. I've heard nothing bad.
Yeah.
Well,
All
I
right.
guess we'll wrap this up here. We haven't done a Minnesota goodbye here in a little bit, but it's feeling like one. So
It's totally feeling like it. I know exactly what you mean when you say that. My whole in-laws are in Minnesota, so I totally get that.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, I'm sure you'll have plenty of that over the holidays, so we'll let you go.
All right, good seeing you guys. Happy holidays, Happy New Year, all that stuff.
absolutely, yeah. Have a good Christmas. Have a good New Year's, and we'll talk sometime soon.
Sounds good. All right, bye.
See ya.
DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. DMJ's Epic Quest. CNJ's 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 Epic Quest.